Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and SJW's Always Double Down. Thanks for tuning in tonight. As you may or may not be aware, my new book is out. It's the sequel to SJW's Always Lie, and it's called SJW's Always Down, Anticipating the Thought Police. It's currently the #1 political philosophy bestseller. I'm very appreciative of everyone who bought it and made that happen. There were nearly 1,000 pre-orders, and nearly as many people buying it today. And so that's really encouraging. It makes it easy to put in the time and effort required when you know that people are genuinely interested in it, and that they genuinely believe that it makes a difference. I don't often tell people this. I'm not someone who believes that everybody should read my book. Thanks. Most of my books are acquired tastes. If you don't like epic fantasy, there's no reason to read A Throne of Bones. If you don't like science fiction, there's no reason to read the Quantum Mortis books. So you don't hear me very often say, you really need to read this book. But what I can say with absolute conviction is if you're the kind of person who is tuning in to listen to this Darkstream, then you really do need to read the book. And here's why. How many of you, don't do any hearts for a second, just this, I want to get answers from you. How many of you have ever been at work or been at a family dinner, and that person who is on the left and is always outspoken and so forth gives you that look? They give you that look, that challenging look, and you know it's coming. And they go and they make some comment, a challenging comment, and they force you to either say nothing and implicitly assent to what they're saying, or to start an argument. They force you into that choice. How many of you have ever been in that situation? Now, it looks from the number of hearts, this is something that's very familiar to you. I've been through it many times. I've experienced it many times as well. They often do it with Trump. They used to do it with Bush. They'll do it with abortion. They'll do it with all kinds of things. And that's why you need to read SJW's Always Double Down. Because I think that I have, with the help of Anonymous Conservative, with the help of Royce, with the help of Artiste, I think that I have figured out what's going on and why that happens, and what the consequences of that reason for that behavior are. And so if you've experienced it, you absolutely know that you're going to run into it. No, I did not collaborate with them any more than I collaborated with Aristotle, and he's been dead for 2,400 years. I utilized their ideas. I found their ideas to be inspiring, and I drew upon them. And what's vital about it, what I think we can safely conclude from this, is that they're not completely irredeemable. All right, SJWs can be fixed, but until they are psychologically fixed, their behavior cannot be adjusted. There's absolutely nothing that you can do to control an SJW coworker. There's absolutely nothing you can do to control an SJW employee. Now you can certainly, beat them down. You can certainly cause them to temporarily draw their horns in and lay low. But you can't change them. They have to change themselves first. They have to fix themselves first. And so, they are, the important thing to understand is that they are literally addicted to conflict. That's why giving in to them never ever works. That's why, change of employee that's not fixing them. That's fixing your problem. We're talking about whether it's possible to fix an SJW. We're explaining why SJWs always double down. They double down because they have to. They double down because they absolutely need the conflict to continue. Think about it. If you're dealing with an SJW and you fix the problem from their perspective, if you give them what they want, does that ever bring an end to the situation? Does that ever bring an end to the conflict? We heard for so long all gays wanted was to be respected. They just wanted to be respected. They didn't want to be arrested and beaten up, right? Okay. What happened after they got that? Immediately they began the push for equal rights. Having their relationships respected, so that so they could visit the hospital room of their loved one, right? The sob stories. So they got that. Did that end the conflict? Of course not. Suddenly, having these civil rights was not enough. Was an insult. It was homophobic. Suddenly they needed to actually be married and completely redefine the entire historical and religious definition of marriage. So you see, it never, ever, ever ends. And so that's what is important about SJWs always down. SJWs always double down. That's why I genuinely believe every single one of you needs to read it. I'm not saying you need to buy it. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Yes, obviously people can change. It's behavior. And so, I think that the reason that it's so important it is because you will understand better the limits on your own actions. You will understand the limits of possibility. And you will not be misled, and you won't be fooled. And so, you have to understand that, giving in to anything, any demand from them, is the worst possible thing you can do. Remember, they need the conflict. If you don't give them the conflict on the ground of your choosing, then they will give you the conflict on ground that might not be so comfortable for you. They are addicted to the conflict because the conflict is the only thing that takes away their psychological pain for a period of time. They need that conflict worse than the guy who's used to going to the gym every day needs to go get his endorphin fix. They need to be outraged in the same way that a cigarette smoker needs that first cigarette of the day. Well, there's many reasons why they have psychological pain. I began to start understanding this when I learned a little bit more about John Scalzi's history. I thought, I knew he had been raised by a single mother, and I knew that he had been the poor scholarship boy at a elite. I knew he'd been the poor scholarship boy at an elite private academy of some sort. So those are difficult things. Those are things that are going to put you behind the 8 ball a little. But I didn't really understand why the guy was such a hopeless SJW. Why he was constantly, looking for these conflicts and going on these rants. It was almost like he needed to do it. And I'd read Anonymous Conservative's book, so I understood the concept of the narcissist, and the malignant narcissist, but that didn't seem to fit quite. But the process that he was describing there was similar enough. And then when I found out that Scalzi had broken his leg, I think he was hit by a car when he was fairly young, when he was in elementary school. And so he had to spend the entire year spending recess in the nurse's office. This came out because he had written a blog post. It was actually a very nice blog post about this nurse at his elementary school that he'd really liked and really spent a lot of time with. And obviously she was a very good person. But that's when I suddenly realized, oh, now I understand why you hate the jocks, why you hate the pretty people, why you hate the successful guys so much. His psyche was permanently scarred by that experience of sitting in there at recess in a wheelchair while all the other kids are outside playing. Now, so that's not going to permanently scar everybody. Some people could have come through it with flying colors, But for somebody who was already, rejected by their father, being feminized by their mother, that was too much. And it fundamentally broke him in a way that healed incorrectly. And so, and these childhood scars, these childhood malformations have an effect on us. And I understand this because I have been affected in a similar way. Not in the same way. I'm not an SJW. My childhood deformation was very different and had very different effects. There was a point in time when my wife said to me, you need to understand we're not talking about homosexuality, drop it. The fact that I don't care I legitimately don't care about other people's opinions is not normal. It was, I think it was actually phrased, there is something fundamentally wrong with you. And the thing is, it's not a lack of empathy. That's what's so strange. Normally somebody who is as intrinsically indifferent as I am lacks empathy and has an amount of sociopathy. That's why sometimes people incorrectly call me a sociopath. I'm not. I know some sociopaths. They're very, very different from me. But what happened is that because I was the smallest and the youngest and the smartest, I was so utterly rejected socially that, nobody had any interest in anything that I was interested in. Didn't care about anything I thought, wanted to do. And there was absolutely no way to get any approval from anybody. My dad was someone who was a detached engineer and was hypercritical. Now, let me put this in perspective for you so you can understand this. When I wrote my first novel, and it was published by Pocket Books, my first solo novel, it was published, and my dad was very supportive, went out and bought a copy, and I got a phone call a few days later, and my wife knew exactly what was going on because she could tell from the conversation. And literally the first thing he said was, "Hey, I read your book." I said, "Great," knowing full well what was coming next. And he said, "Do you want me to tell you what's wrong with it?" And also knowing full well it made no difference, I said, "Not really." And then he spent the next 30 minutes explaining to me what was wrong with my book. I wasn't upset. I wasn't angry. I was actually very amused because I had, this was exactly the pattern of my entire life. And so, that's the deformation that I deal with. Now, I don't mind it. I really like it. I personally, for me, that's normal. That is normal. And I don't understand. I've had, it's taken me years to understand how much other people care about what other people say and think. It's very difficult for, I intellectually understand it. At this point in time, I fully understand it intellectually, but emotionally it still makes no sense to me. Like, why would I care about what that person says since they don't know anything about it? So why would I care what they think any more than I care what a dog thinks? But that's when you said, how do you do it? I don't do it. It was, the ability to care was fundamental. It was burned out of me at a very young age. Okay? Maybe it is a gift in a way. I think it is. But it can also be a bit of a handicap in that you can harm other people. You can harm other people, and you can do things that you later come to regret because it never occurs to you that they would care what you think. All right? And so, but see, that's what you're saying. Knowing when to care is key. It's not an option. It doesn't exist. So what I'm saying is that in the same way that's why I think I can understand better what the SJWs are experiencing, because I'm not experiencing what they're experiencing. But I do understand that they have absolutely no control whatsoever over that addiction, that need to provoke conflict in others around them. They need it in order to escape their pain. Now, the fact that they're kind of tragic in this way doesn't change the fact that they're absolutely cancerous, that they're absolutely destructive, that they will absolutely destroy everything they control. So you need to understand that they can't do anything about that. And so you can't reason with them about it. You can't talk to them about it. You can't reason them off it. I mean, think about it. Can you reason someone once they put their hand on a hot stove? Can you reason with them and tell them, no, just convince yourself that the pain doesn't exist? You can't do it. The person is going to pull their hand off because it hurts. So you can't tell them to just stop generating this conflict in order to create their feelings of moral superiority over somebody else. I mean, the thing, that's actually a mistake. They don't actually live to control others. They live to feel superior to others and to prove that superiority by attempting to control them and then those people resisting. That's what they need. They need something to drown out, basically they need something to generate the feelings of superiority that drown out their, whatever it is, their feelings of inferiority, their psychological pain, their emotional scar tissue. There's many different reasons for it. We don't know what they all are. We don't understand exactly what all of this is. But I mean, think about this. How many serious SJWs do you know are attractive people? Are people that, are just fairly, good-looking, likable people? They're not. And so when you look at that, that's where it starts. That's where it starts. And so now imagine what life is like for somebody like that, who is just crushed again and again and again. People don't want to be around them. People don't even want to meet their eyes and look at them. And then, of course, they end up making the problem worse. They actually, because they're so rejected, they start making themselves uglier and uglier. And so the ugliness on the, here we go. Okay, I turned off the screen for a second. Yeah, so anyhow, it is a vicious circle. They're caught up in it. There's not much you can do. Now, obviously, not all ugly people are like this. I'm just saying that, there is a reason that these people are crippled in the way that they are. So, anyhow, if you want to understand more, get the book. Read the book. It's on Kindle. It's on Kindle Unlimited. SJWs always double down. And give it a try and write a review. Let me know what you think. We'll see you soon.